Hello and welcome to Morning Fuel. I am your host, John Bundy, and you are here because you believe in the power of the spoken word and its ability to change lives, and that by sharing our stories, we can help others overcome challenges that they cannot overcome on their own. Whether it's a victory you need to win in business or in your own personal life, you understand that answers can be found in listening to others who are willing to share their stories, knowing that their story ultimately doesn't belong to them. All right, today's guest is an award-winning journalist, two-time published author, and local news reporter for Williamsburg and Yorktown, Virginia. Earning her undergraduate degree in 2013 from Mitchell College in New London, Connecticut, in communications, she graduated with her master's degree from Sacred Heart University in Fairfield, Connecticut, in journalism in 2014. Her articles have appeared in multiple publications and on multiple topics, including coverage of local government, state governor races, chronic pain, and elite sports. For the 2023 season, she was the sideline reporter for WY Daily, covering every William & Mary football home game. In her free time, she is an avid reader, concert goer, and loves spending time with her cat. She is also one of Paula Abdul's biggest fans, having seen her in concert 32 times. Please help me in welcoming to Morning Fuel podcast family, author, Paula Abdul fangirl, and reporter for WY Daily, Megan Roche. Megan, so great to have you here.
Yes, this is awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. It's, like I said, it's one of my favorite things to do. So one of the things that we've been doing, and this podcast has kind of been one of those, it was a test at the beginning. My wife told me one day, jokingly, I hope, she said, you got a face for radio. You should do something with that. So my daughter and I started a podcast, and we also started helping business owners with their social media. And then the Morning Fuel podcast was born.
Sure.
So what I love to do, and I did this even before I would do the podcast, and that is, ask people a lot of questions. I like origin stories. So Megan, before you wrote books and worked for WY Daily, what were you doing? Who was Megan Roche before being a reporter and going to Paula Abdul concerts?
I just loved everything. I mean, even as a kid, I was so into chorus. I was in chorus in high school for years. I loved singing. I loved theater. And I was that kid who just, any interest I had in anything, my parents let me kind of explore.
Very cool.
And then as I got older, I started saying, well, I've always loved gymnastics. I've always loved watching it. So I took an adult class, and it is not as easy as people think it is.
Yeah.
It was a little intense.
Sure.
But just such a curious kid. I loved, kind of like you said, asking questions and learning more about people. Right. That was always my thing. And I was always, my grandmother, she used to tell people that I was very loquacious. And
I'll have to look that word up.
Yeah.
It sounds familiar.
Yeah. She told me basically that I just love to talk to anybody. And anywhere we went, I was always, hi, what's your name? And it got me in trouble a couple times because, when you're little, they tell you not to talk to strangers.
Sure. Yeah, sure. It reminds me of my youngest. She was very much like that too. Very cool. So do you remember when you thought, hey, I want to be a reporter, or how did that work out?
Sure.
What direction did you go?
So kind of going back to my grandmother. So every summer we would spend every day at her house. She would watch me, my brother, and my two cousins, and we would spend every summer. And she'd take us to summer camp in the morning, and then we'd go to her house in the afternoon. And I was always the kid that had a book in my hand, and I always excelled at reading and writing and anything kind of that literature, musical type area, performing arts. And I kind of had this idea that maybe that might be where I wanted to go. But oddly enough, when I got to college, I originally went to college to be a German high school teacher. I took 4 years of German in high school.
Okay.
And went to school to be a foreign language teacher. It took a whole year of classes and said, yeah, I don't have it in me to be a teacher.
Right.
Changed my major 13 times before I landed on journalism.
13 times in what time period? How can
2.5 years.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Oh, well, at least you can figure out rather quickly whether you like what you're
Yes.
studying or not. That's great. That's great because that would have really stunk to really put more into it, more years into it,
Yeah.
and then realize.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, cool. When did you grew up in Jersey?
Yep.
And then you went to school, you said, in Connecticut and finished up, was it, okay, because you said, so New London and Fairfield. So
Yes.
two different,
Yep.
okay, I got you. What brought you to Virginia?
So my stepdad, he was in the Navy back in the early 90s. He was in the Navy, late 80s, early 90s. And he was stationed on board USS Wisconsin when he was in the service. He was a quartermaster second class. And he got an email one day that Wisconsin, which is now at Nauticus in Norfolk, was hiring for a maintenance mechanic. And what they were trying to do was they were trying to restore her back to what she was when he was in the service.
Wow.
And of course, as we jokingly say in our house, his battleship is his other wife. And we
Gotcha.
couldn't really turn it down. And it's been a job that he's been so passionate about. And we moved here in January of 2020 for him
And
to take
is
that
he
job.
still, so he's there?
Yeah.
That must be surreal, nostalgic.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
know, your former office is now a museum.
Yeah. So
That's interesting.
he basically it's so funny because we would come on vacation here as kids, and my mom would always say to us like, okay, you have to, it's going to be a long day. I know you guys want to go swim at the pool, but like we have to do this for him.
Right.
And I didn't appreciate it back then as much as I do now. But being able to stand in certain places, like he can actually take me to the spot he was at when they first launched Tomahawk missiles.
Okay. Wow. That's something else. So he relives it when he goes back through
Yeah.
there. Wow. Okay. So 2020, before or after the pandemic? Before.
January of 2020,
Wow.
2 months prior.
So you're here and then lockdown.
No friends, no family in the area, just literally me, my stepdad, my mom, and my brother.
Okay. Interesting introduction to Virginia. So you got a little taste of it before that happened because that happened in March, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. It's like almost, I remember where I was at 9/11. I remember where I was, in March of 2020. Did you have a job already?
Yeah. So I was fortunate that the job I was working when we moved here, they let me keep my job up in New Jersey and
so
go remote.
Oh, gosh. You were right in the right spot.
Yeah, totally. We did kind of shift a little bit, and I did get laid off for about 2 months' time
Okay.
just to try to figure out numbers and where
Yeah.
things were going.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it was crazy. That whole time period is like something out of this world that I hope to God we never live again.
No, I promise you I won't. Wow, that's amazing. The timing of that. So the remote job kind of stopped for 2 months. You said,
Yeah.
approximately. Did you wind up going back?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, they brought me back on about 2 months later.
Were you doing reporting and writing with this?
I was
job,
actually an
or-
editor.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
Yeah, I was an editor, and I oversaw 14 different community newspapers. Kind of what we touched on before the interview started was the positivity, and that was one of the things that I loved about that job was we consistently covered nothing but positive.
That's great.
And
That's different.
kids overcoming adversity, athletes. I started a couple columns while I was there, one of which was called NJ Stars, where we interviewed people who kind of went on to bigger and better. We've interviewed Broadway stars.
From New Jersey.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was kind of like their
That's cool.
hometown, kind of thing to get back. And we did some really, really, really neat spotlights with that. And that was kind of my baby that I created
Yeah.
with that.
So since then, now, is that kind of the same? I know that some media companies own other media companies. Are you currently with WY Daily, right? Is that a company that is owned by the...
No.
Oh, okay.
Completely
How did that
different.
happen?
So I was through kind of the height of COVID, and everything kind of shutting down and going the way it was. I kind of started to take a look at what was going on with my jobs. But as I said before, I always loved writing. And being an editor, you don't get the opportunity to write as much as you're used to.
You can find a lot of opportunities to say, I could write that better.
Yeah.
As an editor, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So I knew that I wanted to get back into writing, and I kind of just perused the internet one day for fun to see, like, hey, what's out there? And I stumbled upon WI Daily was looking for a reporter, and, it said entry level, and I was like, oh, well, I'm kind of not at that point anymore.
Yeah, entry level means start at the beginning, right?
Yeah. So I was kind of like, well, I don't know. I'll take a shot and I'll apply. And they got back to me. I think it was like 5 p.m. the same day. And they're like, when are you available? Please come in. And it's been a game changer for sure.
Great. And is it mostly football, or are you doing more? What are you doing? You're doing more than that there, aren't you?
Oh, goodness. Yeah. So my former job where I was the editor, we were a monthly publication. So we only went out once a month.
Gotcha.
Now, WI Daily is a daily. So we go out every day with new stories.
Oh, you love it.
Oh, it's crazy.
Okay.
It can be a crazy schedule. But it's incredible because I have such a great team of coworkers who we have all kind of melded together, and it's like, we know which one is the one who loves to write about authors. I know anything sports related usually comes to me.
Okay.
And we always just look out for each other. But as far as I've done everything from stories on people looking for transplants, people involved in like high caliber athletics. This summer, I'm planning actually a whole series on the Olympic athletes from Hampton Roads as we gear up for the Paris 2024 Summer Olympic Games.
Wow.
I did
exciting.
A couple. Yeah.
You're going to get to travel for that one?
Oh, God. Please. If they would send me to Paris, I would. I'm hoping actually 2028, the games will be in Los Angeles.
Oh, there you go.
So right. I'm hoping.
That's an easier trip, but you still want to go to Paris. So.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't hurt. No. It'd be nice.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm seeing in you kind of what really excites me about what I do, and that is I really enjoy seeing other people light up about what they do.
Absolutely.
So that then becomes the fuel. When you're doing that thing, hours go by and you're like, wow, it's this late already because you love what you're doing. And I see that you have employment in what you love to do. Morning Fuel podcast, the name Morning Fuel came out of a time where I had lost a couple of jobs and was unemployed for quite a while. And I really needed something to motivate me, something to get me back to the place where I needed to be. And that was something that I read in a book. And it became my morning routine, which became part of the fuel that helped me to get through even the tough days.
Yeah.
But man, when you have a job that you love and you look forward to waking up in the morning, that's, like you said earlier, a game changer.
Absolutely, 100%. And I've always had this mindset of I'll know when I need to walk away. I'll know when it's time to go. And the day that my job is not fun anymore is the day that I would walk away.
Yes.
And every day is different.
It's not worth it. It's not worth it to stay there because it doesn't just affect you. It's seen by others, and it brings other people down, So there have been many times where I myself have needed the pep talk, hey, if you don't like this job, go find another one. And I've offered that same advice to other people too. You're miserable every day, man. Find something else.
And I think what's important too with that is that's not to say that there are not going to be days where you're like, I didn't sleep last night, I'm exhausted, I don't want to do this. Because that happens. I mean, it happens to me like almost every month where I'm like, oh, I'm just so tired. Like, I stayed up too late last night. I should have gone to bed earlier. And outside factors play into that. But at the core, that you still love your job.
Yeah. That and having that love of your job, if that is your fuel, gets you through the hard days without even a wink. You just, okay, I'm having a tough day. Tomorrow's going to be different. That's fantastic. So I smiled as I read your bio, and I did a little bit of research. Paula Abdul, I hadn't heard the name in a while, but Paula Abdul was, I could probably sing Paula Abdul songs. I grew up on Paula Abdul. When were you first introduced
Oh.
As in, to the music.
Sure.
And then 32 concerts. Tell me about that.
So the story of me and how I kind of found Paula, so I touch on it in my book that I wrote. It really was, I had just moved to a new town. I was born and raised in Livingston, New Jersey, which is just in Essex County. And my family had found a house that they wanted, so we moved to Morris County. And I, at the time, was in Catholic school, and I was going to be going into public school for the first time. Oh. 7th grade. Very hard time.
Oh my gosh, it's probably the worst.
Very hard time to move, go into something completely different. I went from basically a school where the kids that were in my class were the kids that were in my class every single year to now having things like a locker and having to change for gym class and having to, deal with a cafeteria that sold food and being responsible for money and all these different things. And we moved to Long Valley 5 days before school was going to start.
Oh, not much time to prepare.
No. Walked
Probably
into school.
none, because you're still moving. You're still pulling things out of boxes. And wow.
So bus comes to pick me up, and I'm just like, I don't know what is happening. Like, this is crazy. I want to go back to my old school. I remember very vividly walking through the hallways and seeing people hugging. Oh, how was your summer? And I was just like, I do not know any of these people.
Yeah, you're alone.
And with that, I was a different kind of kid. So I was easily the target of a lot of bullying, teasing. I was the new kid. They didn't know me. So I became...
testing out the new kid, right? Yeah. That's tough.
I became kind of that butt of the joke and
right.
kind of the fire for them. But then I got really hooked on American Idol. And this was like early 2000s.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was like season 3 time frame. And I remember my mom was like, oh, you like music, watch this show. And I was like, oh, okay. And at first, this is so embarrassing, but I'll say it anyway. I was like madly in love with Simon. I wanted to marry Simon. I was 13. I wanted to marry Simon. That was like my life goal. But I was sitting in the living room of our house with my stepdad, and I had a bunch of CDs playing, and it was like those like karaoke CDs that you would get with like all the mishmash of things, and it was like an 80s, 90s CD, and her music started playing, and I was like, who is this? And he was like, oh, it's the lady from the TV show, and I never put it together, and then I was like, oh, well, I like it. Like, I remember it was straight up, cold hearted, and opposites attract. They
straight up now, tell me.
Yes. They were the first like 3 songs that I heard. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I really like this. So I started that summer, I kind of like looked her up and was like, oh, what does she do?
So you're discovering like history, because when you first were introduced on American Idol, she had kind of already done her thing.
Yeah.
And now she's there because she's kind of looking at up and coming singers. I was introduced to Paula Abdul when she first came out.
Yeah.
And then that's amazing. That's really
cool. So I looked her up and I saw a lot of her accomplishments, and being 13 and, it was summer, I was home all day, and the thing I had access to was a desktop computer, and I was always, Wikipedia and Googling and trying to find out more. And I just always gravitated towards the fact that she was the nice one, and she always had kindness, where with everything I was dealing with in school, I was like the joke, and no one wanted to be my friend, and she was just so kind.
So you found a role model. You found somebody
Absolutely.
to kind of look up to, and a very, very positive influence. That's great. Because usually those searches go negative.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So you actually so another part of this too, and we try and do better with each season. This is our 4th season. I kind of have a vision of what I want it to be in my head, and it hasn't quite gotten there yet. But with this season, we're introducing what's kind of the what the fail. The WTF, what the fail. And I look at my life and I see the failures that led to success, or some hardship that led to success. And I see one here as you're talking with me, and that is move to Virginia, pandemic, birth of a book.
Yeah.
You wrote the book during the pandemic.
I did. And it originally started just as a I want to write down some things. And the next thing I knew, it was kind of like we talked about earlier. It was like I woke up and I was like, I want to go to the desk. Like, I want to write. I'm so excited. And I didn't even really come up with an outline because I knew what, being that it's my memoir, these are my experiences.
Yeah.
And one of the things as I was writing it, which I thought was so important, was I got the opportunity to kind of look back at all the things that went on that turned me into where I am now. And one of the chapters in the book talks about the opportunity that I got to first meet Paula in person.
Right, I was hoping you were going to mention that. I was going to ask you if you didn't say anything about it.
It was
really cool. When was that?
March 19th of 2007. I was a sophomore in high school. I had found out about 2 weeks prior that she was going to be in New York City promoting a project that she was working on. And she was a guest on The Late Show with David Letterman.
Okay.
And the way that
like one of my favorite late night shows, and I don't like any of the rest of them, but I liked Letterman. That's cool.
So I begged my dad. I was like, Dad, please, 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 please. And it was all I talked to him about for like 2 weeks. And he was like, fine, I'll take you, but you have to understand that she doesn't know you. She may just up and walk right past you, and I'm not going on some wild goose chase through New York City. And I was like, no, it's fine. Just come pick me up at school. Like, we'll go. I had this crazy like thought in my head at 15, like you do, that like, oh, this crazy thing is going to happen. And so the day before, it is a blizzard outside.
Oh, wow.
It is a massive blizzard. And I was like, oh my God, what if like I don't get to go? Well, we still went, and I stood on the street corner, 53rd Street in New York City, and I stood by the stage door, and she was late. And she was like late by like 30, 45 minutes. So I'm standing there. Freezing. Freezing. And my dad's like, all right, like if she doesn't show in 5 minutes, like we're leaving. And I'm like, no, please, no, don't, please, I don't want to leave. And what I didn't know at the time was there was a camera crew that was there, and they were filming me, and I didn't know who they were. And I was like, that's weird. But they were like, oh, can we ask you like about why you love Paula? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? So, of course, with the nerves of it all, I'm insanely crying. Like, I am bawling my eyes out because I'm just like, oh, I don't know, like, what to say.
Yeah.
And
your dad's shaking his head.
My dad is like, oh, my God, I don't know whose child this is. Like, this is not mine. Yeah. But so she gets there, and the camera crew goes in with her, and I'm still like, I don't know what's happening. Come to find out later, it was actually her Bravo reality series at the time filmed me for an episode.
That's awesome.
Of me getting to meet her, and it still exists in the world.
Right.
And I just, she came out the door to leave, and I was standing there, and I just started crying hysterically. And she was like, what's your name? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, just here, sign this paper. And we took a picture together. And it was just an incredible experience. Right. And I was so grateful.
I saw that picture on your website or bio.
Yeah.
That's wild. That's wild. Now, that wasn't the last time that you got to see Paula.
No. Oh, God, no. I'm trying to think of some of the more prominent moments throughout kind of our
All right,
friendship.
Well, let me ask you this.
Okay.
So she got to the point where she knew who you were when she saw you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's great. And then you actually got to give her a copy of your book?
Yes, I did.
When was that?
So I wrote
just
it
in the past 2 years.
Yeah, I wrote it during COVID. I wrote it, and being that it was a topic that I love, it took me 2 months.
Oh, sure.
It was so easy, and I had
it
so much.
It just flowed from the pen, or the keyboard.
I had all the time in the world because I couldn't do anything else.
Yeah.
I mean, everything else was locked down. I think I walked more than I've ever have, and taken strolls outside with the dog more than I ever have in life.
Yeah.
That was a crazy time. I cooked more. I baked more. I had to find something, but I hadn't seen her at that point, and I actually kept it a secret from her. I did not tell her that I was doing this. And I had gotten to see her in October of 2021 at a charity event that I've gone to. I was introduced to it by her. It's called Wigs and Wishes. It's a beautiful charity. I want to make sure I touch on that in a minute. Yeah. But I brought it to her and I said, I have something for you. And she said, what is it? And I pulled out my book and she was like, wait, you wrote this? I said, I sure did. And it's a whole story of like all of our different memories together. And then the following year when I saw her, she told me she read it cover to cover.
That's great.
And it was one of the most
Cool.
special things she's ever read.
We'll mention Paula Abdul and we'll mention Wigs and Wishes along with your book.
Absolutely.
I think that's really cool. So tell me about Wigs and Wishes, because that sounds pretty close to your heart.
Wigs and Wishes, it's a beautiful charity. I want to give a big shout out to Martino Cartier and his wife Gianna Cartier. It's an incredible thing, and I first started going in 2014. It's a charity that he gives wigs and grants wishes to women and terminally ill children with cancer. And it's all for free. He gives the wigs completely for free to anybody who kind of qualifies and has the, fills out the application.
Right.
And it's just him who kind of runs it. There's no red tape. There's no people that, like you don't have to pay to get into a program or anything like that. And there's a gala evening every year. And 2014, Paula was co-hosting the gala. And I was like, oh, well, it's here in New Jersey. I should go. Like, maybe I'll get to see her. And from that point on, I fell in love with what they do. I've seen the magic. And it's a harder and harder thing to go to every year because as you're there, you hear, oh, last year we gave such and such a puppy. Well, unfortunately, they lost their battle. And it's...
I can see how that can be tough.
Yeah. And it tends to go on like that for like 2 to 3 hours with just those stories. And but it's a fantastic organization. And she's now become kind of a board member for them and a co-host of the event. And it's something I don't miss every year. It's so important. And... I love what they do and I love what they stand for.
Well, that's great. That's great. Well, before I ask my last question, how can folks best reach you online, social media?
Sure. You can go to my Instagram. I have kind of a follow me along journey kind of Instagram. It's at Writing with Megan. You can probably link that.
Excellent.
I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Okay.
100%. Yeah.
And then if you want a copy of my book, I haven't put it out on Amazon or anything like that. But if people just drop me an email or send me a message on Instagram, I'm happy to.
Okay. Cool.
To mail them
so
on.
when do we get it on? When do we get it on Amazon? What do we need to do that?
It's so hard.
I know
Amazon
it is.
Amazon is a hard thing to.
You got to pay money to a publisher really to get on that, or you got to have the big bucks. I got you.
And actually, what I learned from a friend who's in the publishing industry is because it's about a public figure, said public figure has to go through their channels and kind of sign off on it. And,
yeah. Cool.
All of that. So hopefully, I hope it goes up there.
Well, yeah. Well, Paula Abdul's going to see this, so that's awesome. Okay, my last question. Megan, reporter for WI Daily, author, what is it that you need right now? Like as a entrepreneur, as a writer, if kind of like money's no object, what would you need like right now?
Ooh, good question. Did not see that one coming. Honestly, I would say just a vehicle to get my book out there and really into like people's hands and because I talk about how I got through all the bullying and the teasing and I want other kids to know who may be like me, who have this kind of like fangirl fascination or something like that, that it is normal and it's not something that you should let people pick on you for. It's not worth it.
Right. Well, fantastic. Megan, really great to meet you. Glad that we got to talk, and so thankful that you reached out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And can't wait to share the story. So, wonderful. And hopefully, Paula Abdul, we got to get this. We got to get this thing published. And
Come on, girl.
Come on. Yeah. Straight up. Now, tell me.
Good one.
All right.
We approve of that one.
Very cool. Thank you.
Thank you.